Hi, I'm Tara Newell. Today we're going to talk about the fourth episode of The Idol. So, in this episode, it's even more messed up. And by the way, spoiler alerts and trigger alerts for anyone that needs it. I'm going to be talking about a lot of stuff that happens. And so, you're going to just know what happens in the show if you watch it. So, might as well watch the show before you watch this, or watch this and not care what's going to happen next. So, in the first scene, you really see the maids cleaning up everything from a party. It's just party central there now. Everybody's living there. It's basically like a trap house, but a lot nicer. It's the trap house that I always wanted to live at if I had to live at a trap house. So it's really beautiful there. People are just living there for free, freeloading. But it's also basically Tedros's cult in a sense. So Tedros, he is the person who I think is the toxic psychopath in a sense. And this episode is really interesting because it shows more of the toxic dynamic and it gets more toxic, and then drugs are involved. And so it's a really just toxic environment overall. And you find out that, Tedros is going over the schedule with Leia, and that's her Jocelyn's assistant slash friend, and her assistant slash friend is going over everything, and then Tedros is telling her what to cancel. And Tedros told her to cancel this makeup line that her and Jocelyn have together, and she's a little bit bummed about that. And unfortunately, he makes a valid point. She is working for him and they're working for Jocelyn, and she needs to work on getting out those hits right now. So I do agree with him. Unfortunately, it's not fair to her and the assistant. So, you know, I do agree to that in a certain extent, but I think he's a psychopath and I think that he's no good. So he's exiting out all of these things on the calendar. And then he also exits out like a meeting with this guy that runs like the concerts and everything. Just because Tedros doesn't like the competition. Tedros doesn't like someone stepping in, and he doesn't like male energy, especially stepping in. So you see all of this go on. It's party central. They're working on it, the hits, the three songs that they got to get together. And then you see her starting to be in the studio. You see them just like, they seem like they're on a lot of stuff and they're starting to like fight and bicker because that too. But you see him in the studio. She's singing. He like puts her mic away from him, or he like puts the mic away from her. And that to me is a control aspect. There was no need to really do that. And then he starts dancing with her. And so he wants the attention to be back on him, even though it should be about her and her songs. And then also, the manager comes in and she runs into Chloe, the girl who sang the family song and everything. And then she's asking Chloe questions. She's also helping Chloe with like her music in a sense, because she's like telling, oh, okay, you need to go up here, you need to do this differently. And so she's helping Chloe really kind of get it together in a sense, and giving her direction that maybe the manager should already be knowing how to do. And obviously, Tedros doesn't know how to do any of this. He just knows how to control people, and he thinks he's the big boss on campus in a sense. And he is the ringleader in this sense. So you see her working with her. She's asking her questions. Chloe almost lets it slip that she's 17 years old. So she's underage. And it just means that there's a lot of underage people living there. And that is how Tedros gets these people to come in, is that he gets these girls that are young, vulnerable. Chloe was on the streets doing H. And so she was really vulnerable. And he gets her, and then he brings her and he gives her a home and tries to get her talents into work in a sense. gives her drugs. And so it's really toxic for even this little girl. And this girl is a little girl, even though she's doing adult things and living an adult lifestyle. And this isn't an adult lifestyle. This is a adult toxic lifestyle. So it just is really interesting. And then there is the manager that comes in. She sees Jocelyn. She gives her like a few tips. And then she also sees Jocelyn get assaulted by Tedros in front of everyone because he's like, oh, let me show you how I get Jocelyn to like get the good stuff out, basically. And then he like is touching her in front of everyone and blindfolds her. And it's really grotesque and it's really just gross. And later on in the episode, Leia is talking about it to the guy that she's with, who's also like Tedros's guy. And so this guy is completely brainwashed by Tedros. And at least Leia is starting to get, well, she's kind of had the hint all along that this guy is bad news bears, but she's just like, he's assaulting her and she's 100% right. 100% right. And it just shows how he's able to control her and manipulate her. And it's interesting too, because in the song that she's singing, she's talking about a bad guy and how basically she gives control to him. And so does she know what she's doing? I think she does to a certain extent, to be honest. I think she knows that this is a bad guy. He's coming into her life, but she's just going to give him the reins and let him take control because to her, he's the only one that really sees her in a sense. And he knows what to say to gain control. He knows what to say to like get her to trust him. And so it's just really messed up. Then there's other scenes where they're fighting. She's like, oh, did you do this? Like, you need to get sleep, you know? And you just see them starting to fight. And then afterwards, there's more parties. And then Diane comes and she's like arguing with Tedros and stuff, Tedros. And then she's getting the lowdown. Jocelyn's getting the lowdown from Chloe that it was a plan to bring Jocelyn that night, and Diane didn't think that Jocelyn was going to get with him. So that's unfortunate. And now she knows that it was a plan to get her there. And so Jocelyn does now is she invites her ex over. And this is the ex that was the actor that cheated on her. And so he comes in, he's hot shot, but he's just like waiting around. And the manager sees him and she's like, oh my gosh, that's Jocelyn's ex. And then Tedros is like, let's go do shots, guys. Like, you know, come on, let's do shots. And then they go and they do the shots. And he's kind of like forcing the shots on him. He's like, come on, let's do shots. Like, who, you know, who's bigger kind of thing. And then he like tries to like fake fight him in a sense. It's like weird. It's gross. It's like, again, you know, whose dick is bigger. And it's just gross. Then Jocelyn comes down. She hops right on her ex-boyfriend. And then is like, the ex-boyfriend's like, oh, I was just with him. Do you know him? And then Jocelyn's like, no. And then takes her ex upstairs and then they start to get intimate. But you also find out that Jocelyn was the one who said that monogamy is like not fun or something like that. So she was also the one that stated that they should be in an open relationship. And so him cheating wasn't really cheating in a sense. And I like monogamy, so I can't do any of that stuff. But if there's basic guidelines, then I guess sometimes you can't consider something cheating. So they get busy with it. You find out that he was living there and that he felt bad for Jocelyn's situation, finding out on social media, etc. He was kind of processing that, and then they just sleep together. And then he walks out at the end of the morning. Xander's there. Xander takes a picture with him and this girl because Xander's like, can you take a picture with my friend? She then gets all over him and he's very turned off by this. He tells him, delete those photos. That's not cool. And I think Xander was also doing that because earlier in the episode, there is a very horrific scene where there's a dog shock collar and it gets put on Xander, and Jocelyn is telling Tedros that he's lying and stuff and telling him to shock him. At first she was like, no, this is too extreme. And then she's like, oh, shock him. So she is definitely feeding into the toxic energy, and she definitely has mental problems as well. I think she is like either maybe bipolar a little bit or borderline, more so probably borderline in a sense. And it's really interesting because is this the dynamic of her father and Amber Heard's relationship? I don't know. But it just shows you the toxic nature. And it's just really interesting to see it all play out on TV. So the next episode is the very last episode. We'll see what happens. Tedros is a psychopath, in my opinion. He's controlling and he's going to plan something. And I think he already got something planned because he had the ex take pictures, in that situation. Xander had that happen. And I think that Xander is under Tedros's control now because now he's going and doing stuff for Tedros. So those are my thoughts. I think that stuff is going to get crazy in the next episode. And so stay tuned for next week, guys. And I hope you guys enjoyed my analysis of The Idol and the toxic relationships. So thank you guys. I'll see you guys next week. Please subscribe and yeah.